Now, some people have made the argument that 21 million bitcoins is too small an amount to run a planet. We have 1 billion tokens, but it really doesn't matter, actually. The argument is really based on the original argument that John Maynard Keynes made about gold, which he called a barbarous relic. And the argument was that since there is a limited supply of gold in the world, as populations increase, the amount of gold necessary for societies to function becomes insufficient, and therefore gold serves to hamper human growth. That is a completely bogus argument. And in the case of Bitcoin or Vow, what really happens is that the price mediates, right? The fewer the vow and the more the demand, the higher the price. And that simply just benefits those who got in at any point. The earlier that you get into a position, the more fantastic your returns will be. But eventually everyone will be in vow, right? So they'll just benefit less because they got in really late, but they will still benefit.
Yes, because of the reward system and everything, the prices will be reduced so everyone can.
Yeah, and eventually Vow will, be $1 million a token. It will eventually, when it destroys fiat, it will stabilize. Then the question will be, how many Vow for a dozen eggs, right? And then you get essentially a commodity-based token, right? So in some ways, what Russia is doing now is really prescient. They are constructing a new reserve currency that is based on commodities, and that makes a great deal of sense because commodities expand and contract along with population demand, right? So it means that you have a monetary system that is self-adjusting to the actual necessity of for money of the population. And that's why I said in my speech in Frankfurt, imagine a currency that is not driven by politics or warfare, but by actual demand, right? That would be sort of like the ideal currency, and that is what Vow is. It is the ideal currency.
In one of your speeches, you said, we need to do this together and we need to do it big.
Yes. Bish can't do this by himself. If Bish has something that is so powerful as to threaten the world's power structure, what happens is he gets snuffed, right? They show up in the middle of the night, they take him out and his family, and no one ever hears from him again. In order for us to prevent that, they have the people at the very top don't yet even know about Vow. And when they know about it, they won't understand it for a while. And when they understand it, they will try to deploy mitigation tactics, right? They'll try to find the vulnerabilities, and certainly Bish and the founders of the project are vulnerabilities because they can be threatened. They can be forced to shut the project down by way of incarceration or worse, torture, whatever it is that those people do. And so obviously these are things that we've all thought about at length because we have plenty of precedent, right? We can see what happened to Julian Assange, for example, right? That's a fate worse than death, and I feel for the man, and I applaud him for his standing up despite his knowledge that this might happen to him. And that's really what drove my speech in Frankfurt, is that the way to prevent this is to gain numbers. They can take a few of us, put us in dark little boxes, but they can't take millions of people, right? It becomes difficult. And so we need to get to the millions. We need to basically let the horse out of the barn. Because once that horse is out of the barn, you can close the door all you like. It won't matter, right? And we're not at that point yet. We need to. That's why I think the liquidity providers are an important part of this, because to some extent the liquidity providers are a confirmation of the faith in the system. They actually come out of pocket and put their money where their mouth is, right? It's easy to say, oh yeah, Vow's a great system and we should definitely have it, but I have nothing at stake. Those liquidity providers actually have money at stake, right? It proves how much they believe in the system. And it also happens to have an operational benefit, right, in that they are providing liquidity for the merchants. So now we can go to the merchants and say, yeah, we have plenty of liquidity. You don't have any worries about the returning V dollars, right? But that's why I think it's important. Every one of those liquidity providers needs to be talking about Vow, needs to be telling everyone who will listen about Vow, to go out and buy Vow, not necessarily to provide liquidity, just to go out and buy Vow and hold on to it, right? Because this is what will give Vow strength, is a battle for hearts and minds. And then we become hard to persecute.
I want to encourage that. Yeah. That is really the reason why we are both sitting here, because we know that it's important that the knowledge is spread about the system and about the chances that are in this new way of using money, thinking, and working together as customers, retailers, or just human beings.
Yeah, I also want to add the idea of a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you buy Vow, you may come to the conclusion that you want other people to buy Vow because the price will go up, right? So you become a prophet for Vow by merely owning it. As a liquidity provider, you already own it, right? You have half of your liquidity in Vow in the liquidity pool. And so you benefit from a rise in Vow. But even if you don't become a liquidity provider, just buying Vow, it makes you think, right? Oh, it's $1.23 today. But if more people buy it, it will go up in price and I will benefit. So everyone should be talking on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook, on all their social media. They should be talking about Vow, encouraging other people to buy it, because that's how they'll benefit. And I mean, that's why we're having this conversation, like you said. I need to be able to transmit to a much broader audience these basic concepts, to help to demystify, to deconstruct the pieces, so that people can come into Vow with an understanding of what it is. I don't want anyone buying Vow in the dark, right? Not knowing what they're getting into. They need to understand the incredible potential and their participation that they can have in this system, how they will benefit, why it doesn't fail, right? What mitigation plans are in place. I didn't talk about this before, but at present, Vow is a corporation in the Isles, in the British Isles, in Jersey, and that is largely out of necessity, because that's how things are done today, right? That you need an actual corporation in order to sign contracts and have the color of law behind agreements and all this kind of stuff. But having a corporation also means, because all corporations are created by the grace of a sovereign, we are allowed to organize ourselves under this banner of a corporation by the sovereign, and therefore we must comply with all the rules of the sovereign, right? That is less than ideal for a blockchain project, because we have something called the DAO, right? A decentralized autonomous organization. We can organize ourselves on the blockchain without the permission of any sovereign. We can be outside of jurisdiction of anyone, right? And that means we don't have to comply with the rules, and we don't have to do all the reporting and disclosure and pay the taxes and all this kind of stuff that goes on right now. So, but more importantly, and really the primary driving reason for Vow to become a DAO is the fact that it cannot be destroyed. The sovereign can simply say, you have broken the rules, so we destroy your corporation, right? Well, you can't do that on the blockchain. There is no sovereign that actually has jurisdiction. So as a risk mitigation plan, one of many that we have, we will dissolve the corporation and create a DAO. All the structures are already in place to do this. And at that point, Bish no longer becomes the focal point because, like I said, he's the CEO of the Vow Corporation, and he can be threatened by governments, and he will have to comply, and he'll have to do whatever it is that they ask him to. But once the DAO is operational, he is no longer the key decision maker. Now there's a council of shareholders, of token holders, and nobody knows who the token holders are. There are no rules about the transmission of ownership of tokens like there are with shares. When you have shares in a company, you can't just sell them. You have to first get permission from the company. It has to be reported. The ownership has to be registered with the sovereign. I no longer own those shares, you do. Well, in the token world, we don't have that, right? I can sell you my shares, my tokens, and nobody knows that I sold them. Nobody knows who I was or who you are. And using those tokens, I can vote. I can say, I agree with this project. There's mechanisms, right? The DAOs provide for governance. And so at that point, we become one step closer to invulnerable. They can come to Bish and say, hey, you're the CEO of, well, nothing, but you founded this DAO thing and you presumably control it. No, I don't. Actually, I gave up my tokens, right? They can't prove that that's not the case. And at the very least, he can say, well, but I don't have any control. The control is by the token holders. And they can say, well, who are the token holders? I have no idea. There's no way to know. So end of story.
So come on all and join us. Thank you, Erick, for sharing all your wisdom and your passion for the Vow and a change in this global world.
Yes, very happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity for me to talk about it, and I hope that I can reach the audience. And by any means, if anyone has a question, they should ask you about it, and we'll address it in one of these things. And they can also reach me directly. I'm very widely available to anyone. I'm Ekkis, EKKIS on Twitter and Telegram.